Hello.
Hi, Amin.
Hello. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Aminat Akiyemi Ayola. I actually had my first degree in computer science at the University of Ibadan, after which I had a second degree, that's a master's degree in computer science as well, in the University of Hull, United Kingdom. Um, Before now, I worked in the UK as a maths tutor in a college before I relocated to Nigeria, and currently I'm a director of academics in robotics and artificial intelligence Nigeria. I also teach one of the courses in the training center, that is machine learning. I love cooking, I love teaching, and also I love reading articles. Anything to make me learn, I love it. I'm also a mentor for STEM Girls Initiative. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. I had a master's degree in computer science under the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, and I'll be sharing my experience. So basically, when you want to apply for scholarship, there are some steps involved. While going through the steps, I'm going to make sure I personalize it by just explaining my experience to you. So when I made up my mind that I wanted to do grad school in the UK, the first thing I had to do was to search for scholarship opportunities. And what I did was to subscribe to some scholarship database. So I subscribed to Scholars for Dev. I subscribed to study and scholarships, and I also subscribed to scholarship positions. And while I was subscribing to this website, in order to get scholarship opportunities delivered to my mail so I don't miss out on any of them, I tried to make it like a personalized search. So I specified that I wanted scholarships in the UK. So once you get some of these scholarship opportunities, the next thing you want to do is you want to make a list of suitable scholarships. So scholarships you think you're suitable for, you're eligible for, you want to write them down. Take note of the requirements and also their deadline. This is very, very important. So you don't just mix things up. So some scholarships actually require that you have admission, you've secured admission in a desired school before you apply for the scholarship. Why for some scholarships, you don't have to, there's no separate application. While you're applying for admission in that school and they are reviewing your application, then they would check if you meet certain conditions. So while they're giving you the admission, they can decide to give you admission with the funding. So these are some of the things you need to look out for. Some scholarships require you get admission prior to applying for the scholarship. While for some, just go ahead apply for admissions, and if you're one of the best candidates, they will give you admission together with funding. Otherwise, they just give you an admission. So basically, when you're trying to apply for admissions or you're trying to apply for scholarship, you'll be expected to write a personal statement. They also call that statement of purpose. Most times, you have to write a personal statement or a statement of purpose for admission. Please and please, this is where you're going to sell yourself out. Don't just give yourself that excuse that, oh, I'm not a writer and everything. I'm also not a good writer. I remember my very first personal statement that when I sent to a friend that we shared same interests, like he also wanted to, he was also seeking um, scholarship for graduate school. When I shared the document with him, the first thing he asked was, "Did you get any template online?" I'm like, "No." He said, "I'm sorry to let you know, your statement actually says," as in like, it just needed to put it to me in a subtle way that I really have a whole lot to do on my write up. And he decided to share his own sample and said, okay, I should look at it, learn from it, and try to rewrite. So what I'm telling you this experience is that fine, that was my very first attempt. It was rubbish. And today I'm speaking to you as an ex-scholar, of which what I wrote an essay which won me a scholarship. So I'm just letting you know that don't just give yourself the excuse that you are not a writer. The more you spend time on it, the more you read, you research, you get better and better at it. You always get better and better at it. So please and please take your time, check for samples online, Try to write a personal statement or statement of purpose. Try to be patient. Don't be in a hurry, and always try to review it from time to time, because with time you are going to get better at it. So the next step is, okay, try to apply for admissions. But mind you, before you apply for admissions, I'm sure you have already checked. I want to believe you have checked the website. You've tried to look out for schools you want to apply to and all that. So for some fundings, for some scholarships, you are free to go to any school of your choice within the UK. Why for some scholarships they have restrict, as in they have like the a limitation to the kind of schools you can go to. Some of them will tell you this scholarship is only applicable to a number of schools, and some of these scholarships as well will tell you this scholarship is only applicable to a number of courses. Like for me, I got the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, which is different from the Commonwealth Scholarship. Though it's still the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship is actually funded by the Commonwealth, but it's a shared scholarship between Commonwealth and participating UK universities. So not all UK universities are actually participating in that scholarship scheme. So for me, it means that I actually add restriction. I couldn't just apply to any UK school of my choice. I had to apply to UK schools that were participating in that scholarship scheme. And also another limitation with the with the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship was that participating schools had courses they wanted to fund. So some schools had courses they wanted to fund. Like some schools like Oxford actually participated in the scheme, were not ready to sponsor computer science. So I couldn't have applied to Oxford with the intention of getting a Commonwealth shared scholarship. No, it wouldn't have worked for me. So all was among the participating university, and also computer science was among the course. So these are some of the things you need to actually take note of when you are checking your scholarship opportunities, they're looking at their requirements and all of that. So most importantly, contact your referees. You don't want to have gone through the stress of applying for admissions and applying for scholarship, written a very good essay that could earn you a scholarship, and because your referee did not um, your referee failed to submit a reference for you before the deadline. Because of that, you now miss out a scholarship. That's going to be very, very painful. Some people have missed out admissions because of their referees didn't submit a reference for them. Some have missed out on admission because they just contacted someone somewhere to act as a referee for them, someone that couldn't really speak so good about them. So you wouldn't want that. So please contact referees that you are sure they're going to give very good report about you, your academic performance, your attitude, and all of that. And also, please ensure that these are people you don't have to people that you are sure they're going to submit a reference for you before the deadline, because it's going to be very, very painful for you to miss an opportunity of which you have done everything on your part that's going to earn you a scholarship, and just because of a referee somewhere you're missing out on the opportunity. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Next slide.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, my laptop is hanging, so.
Oh, okay. All right. So now that I've walked you through the process of applying for a scholarship, I'm just going to tell you some success tips. So the very first thing, I know so many people will tell you, don't put all your eggs in one basket, apply to so many scholarships as you can. Yeah. But the most important thing is for you to find a right balance between the amount of scholarships you want to apply for and the quality of applications you submit. Reason being that applying for a scholarship, it's actually it takes a lot of effort, it takes time, and for each scholarship you want to give a personalized, you want to have like a personalized template, you want to have like a personalized application for each scholarship. There's nothing like a one fit all. It's not like a one fit all kind of something. No, it's not that. So you just write one statement of purpose and submit to all scholarships. It's not going to work because sometimes even for scholarship applications, the kind of essays they ask you to write differs. Some will ask you for just one essay. Some will ask you for about 4 to 5 essays. I remember Chevnin then asked for about 4 to 5 essays. The Google Anita Bog scholarship, that was the previous name. That asked for about 5 different essays as well. So tell me, how do you have a one fit all application for this? It's not going to be possible. So because you are focusing more on quality and not quantity, you have to try to find a right balance between the amount of applications you want to submit and the quality of applications. So while doing this, you have to kind of apply wisdom. You don't want to, because you're trying to limit the number of applications to submit. You don't want to, because of that, not apply for a scholarship you think you're eligible to apply for. You don't want to do that. Another thing you have to do is to start early. Start early, and also while trying to start early, take into consideration most of the details well in advance. And I'm going to share my experience with you here. Remember, I said when I started applying, I was not so good with writing essays and everything, but with time I got better. Then I remember that I could spend like weeks trying to write just one essay to so the moment with time I improved, and I could just spend few days trying to perfect one essay. I got better. I got better actually. That's experience for you. So another thing I would like you to know is, like, the scholarship I got, they had like a document, because I did a lot of research, which some people didn't even know about. I did a lot of research, and they had a separate document somehow. I don't even know how I found out the document, which contained tips. Like, they called it a selection criteria document. So I saw that document and I took note of most of the points they were looking out for in your essay. I took note of everything. So the moment I had an essay, I decided to do like a cross check between the essay I wrote and the selection criteria. So I checked, okay, have I answered each and every of this question? I remember when I looked at everything, I was like, wow, I've answered everything except one. And that last question, I was just thinking, how do I go about it? I've reached my word limit, and I just told myself I must answer this question. I'm not going to, because of that, feel okay, I have a very good essay already. I've answered most of the questions and just take my eyes off this. No, I must answer this question, and I must not exceed my word limit. So I started talking to people. I talked to people. I said, read my essay. I've read it, but this question, I don't know. I've not answered it. I feel I've not answered it. Got so good. I spoke with someone. He read the essay and said, okay, I think this is the way you can answer this particular part. And immediately it made sense. So immediately I was able to answer that particular question, and I was still within my word limit. So imagine if I didn't find that document. Many people that applied for a scholarship at that time didn't have the document, didn't even know about it when I was speaking to them and all of that. I had to share with some of them. So you have to take into consideration many of the details well in advance, and also start early. Starting early, especially for those that are struggling to write, are not so good with writing. In the UK, many schools, you just submit your document online by upload. It's upon resuming at the school, they check your documents. So you might not really have to bother yourself about sending any documents through post and everything. Of course, there's the option, but they are very, very flexible. You can just upload your documents online and you're good to go. I didn't have to send any documents until I arrived to the UK, and I submitted my documents upon resumption. So when we're looking at starting early in terms of scholarship applications in the UK, probably looking at my experience and some other scholarships I applied to, it's not in terms of documents, but just in terms of probably your essay, and if you need to prepare some other documents so that you can have them for upload. Then lastly, please get past scholars or writers to review your write-up. I had nothing less than 4 or 5 people review my application. Yes. And different people, all these people add input. They add input. So you can't override or just overlook the importance of getting people to look at your write-up, because you have been the one that have written this write-up so far. So everything you have written is through your own lens, through your perspective. You need to let others read it and they'll tell you what to do. I remember one of I gave about 2 people to read, and those were past scholars. I think one of them was a beneficiary of Commonwealth Shared Scholarship as well, and another two. About two of them were beneficiaries of Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, and they were able to give me one or two tips, which I believed also helped me to become a beneficiary of the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship. So please, when you're applying for scholarship, don't overrule these particular points. All right, next slide, please. All right. So in the UK, you don't really have much schools with funding. Just very few schools. Most of the fundings are available for the UK. Well, that's for thought masters, not research. And I think for research, it's mostly PhD research. There are lots of funding for PhD research, but for masters research, not much. And for thought masters, just very few schools will offer funding. But these are very few schools that I know offer funding, like the University of Westminster International Scholarship. That one offers the full funding. So they'll pay for your flight, accommodation, and all of that. Then get Cambridge Scholarship, Rhodes Scholarship, also, that's the University of Oxford. They apply funding, I think full funding. But I think for that of Cambridge and Oxford, you don't really have to do a separate application. I'm not that sure. It's based on your application for admission. So if your application is top notch and you meet the criteria for the scholarship, then you have it all to go. Then there's all this one, the for University of Nottingham. It's just for tuition fees. So you can get based on your application, you can get up to 75% off your tuition fee, or you get 100% off your tuition fee. And so, looking at the picture, the screenshot I have there, basically for any school you want to apply to in the UK, if you want to check if they have funding, just go to their postgraduate study section, and on that section just click on fees and funding. So when you click on fees and funding, you see every information they have regarding funding for the school. So you can see the various scholarship opportunities they have, the ones that are full, that's if they have, and the ones that are just some money towards your tuition. So I've added this extra year. That's the Google Women Tech Makers Scholarship Program. It was formerly called the Google Anita Box Scholarship Program. And this scholar, why I've added this is that it's for women who are trying to study computer science at the master's level in, I think, UK and one other country. I think USA, if I'm not mistaken. And the scholarship is actually worth 7,000 euros. So what I've added as an extra is, imagine getting a scholarship with a university that probably just takes care of only your tuition. At least with this, that's going to take care of your living expenses. Even though in the UK, you might just need to add some more money, or show that you have some more money to cater for your living expenses, because 7,000 euros is not up to the amount required for living expenses in the UK. So, but at least that gives you a good start. That's going to take care of about maybe 80% of the total funds you need for your grad school, which I think is a good start. So you might just have to bother yourself with just some little change to show in your account, and also to pay for flight tickets and visa fees. So now I mentioned this Google Women Tech Scholarships Program, which was formerly called the Google and Box Scholarship. Let me just quickly share my experience with applying for this scholarship with you. Remember, I emphasized on starting early. So what really happened with this scholarship then was, initially when I got the notification, I decided to apply. I started early, so I saw that I had about five different essays to write. I started, but it put me off, and I just took it off. That let me just focus on other scholarships. After all, it's not like a full. It's not going to be like a full funding. If I get this, I still have to bother about tuition fees and all of that. So let me just put in all my efforts to scholarships I know I can get full funding for. So about 2 or 3 days to the deadline, a friend of mine just said, "This scholarship is out. Have you applied to it?" I'm like, "Oh, I saw it though. I started it, but I just left it." It was like, "Please apply to it." And I said, "Okay." So that day I got to work. I told my friend, we're all applying for scholarships together. I got to work. I said, "Today we are going to apply for this scholarship, and we are going to ensure we meet the deadline." And she was like, "Okay, good." That day, I wrote about 75% of the essay. I went home on Saturday, I completed the essay. But because the deadline was very close, I really didn't have anyone to just give proofread for me and everything. And I felt, well, I've got better over time. This essay sounds so good to me. Got so good. I gave one person, she's a writer, I gave her to read and she read, she was like, wow, this your essay is awesome. In fact, I don't have anything to correct. I'm like, okay, no problem. I just went ahead, not to bother myself looking for people to proofread for me, and I submitted. And meanwhile, during the scholarship application, they said the top 15% were going to be invited for interview, after which they will do their final shortlisting. So I was like, okay, good. I went ahead, I submitted, I called my lecturer to please submit the reference for me, and God so good, she did that for me just in time, and she wrote a very good um, report about me. When the email finally came in, they were like, "We're sorry, you didn't make the scholarship, but I'm just happy to invite to let you know you were among the top 15%." I was like, "Wow, top 15%." So that means if they had moved on to doing an interview, then I would have been invited for an interview, and that would have given me a chance. Probably I would have been selected. But they changed their plan. They didn't do interview, and they just went ahead to select the top 5%. So why did I? The only thing that made me feel bad was I said if I had started early, if I'd given people to proofread and all of that, probably I might have been among the top 5% and I would have won the scholarship. So till today, anytime I think about it, I'll just be like, so because I wrote all the essays in a rush. So it might have been and it might have not been. But if I had done everything I needed to do and I still didn't get it, I wouldn't have anything to blame it on. I would not have blamed it on time. So that's just one experience I had to share with you on the importance of starting early. Thank you. I think that's all.
thank you. I mean,
You're welcome.
so personally, I will actually tell you the reason why I didn't apply to any UK schools was because of funding. Because I always there's this mentality that UK when you want to study in UK, you have to go with the money. That's what I know about UK. But I'm very very grateful we have people like able to share their own experience and open up, give us more insight on what is happening over there. And before we move on to US, we have another speaker coming that'll be speaking to us more on UK. She's did a master's and also a PhD, currently doing a PhD right now. Welcome, Chidimar.
Hi, Amy.
Thanks for joining, Chidimar.
Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening, or morning, or afternoon, depending on where you are. A little bit about my background. I gained my first degree, bachelor's degree in English from the University of Ibadan. And following graduation, I served at the Oyo State Ministry of Education. And afterwards, I left Nigeria for the UK for my master's in international relations at Loughborough University. And during my master's, I worked with Loughborough International Office. And then afterwards, I returned to Nigeria and I worked with Total Nigeria PLC. And after a while, I left again for the UK for my PhD, which I'm currently running at Loughborough University. So if there is anything specific that you might want to know, then my email address is there, or you can ask the question later on. And I'll be happy to answer if I've got the answers. So thanks, Okpeyemi, for having me. And yeah, so next slide. It's interesting that, what Okpeyemi said initially about why, her perception of studying in the UK, it's a myth that I am happy to sort of debunk. Because I have a slightly different experience, having done both my master's and PhD on scholarship from a university funding. So obviously, deciding to study abroad is one very important decision that takes a leap of faith in a way, especially if you don't have the funding. And there are so many ways to sort of like go about searching for the university, or searching for the course or the funding. And so for me, the first step was at least deciding what country do I want to study in. And then one of the things that helped me was I sort of had an idea of the course I wanted to study for my master's. I wanted to study something along the line of international relations, Africa development, international development, something along that line. And so the UK was my first choice. So funneling my search to a specific country, and then having an idea of the course I wanted to study, was a huge step forward for me. And then it was I had to then decide what university or universities that I wanted to apply to. And so I did apply to a couple of universities after I searched and found out that they had funding opportunities. So I think once you've decided on the country and you've decided on the university and you've decided on the course, and then it would be worth making inquiries to find out what funding opportunities they have, and also checking your eligibility for the opportunities that they have. One of the earlier speakers already talked about having a strong academic credential. It really gives you an edge. I think one of the things that obviously helped in my case was I had a first class in my first degree, which helped for my master's funding, and then a distinction in my master's, which obviously helped for my PhD funding application. And so if you've checked the eligibility criteria and you've made your basic inquiries and you're eligible, then obviously the next step would be to then apply. So for the UK, some fundings might require you to have an admission already. So the first step might actually be gaining admission first and then applying for funding. Aminat had already talked about funding like the Commonwealth scholarships, which are government funded scholarships, which, I mean, ironically, my PhD research is actually on Commonwealth scholarships. So my sort of perspective would be on getting university scholarships, which is the one that I got. So next slide, please. I guess it's hanging again. Okay, so I mean, we really cannot overemphasize the importance of giving your proposal, ample time. I had put in bracket there, don't rush it, because for the kind of funding that I got, for example, there is no opportunity for an interview. So you're not going to, you might not have the opportunity to meet these people face to face. So whatever they are going to make their judgment is going to be based on the proposal that you submit. So it's very important that you give it your best, both when applying for the admission and ultimately when applying for the funding, which I believe you would have read through and you're eligible before putting in your application. And so, so it's very important to prepare a very good proposal and a statement of interest, and please give it enough time, don't rush it. I recall that for my master's funding, I started around like February and finally submitted, I think, around April. So it took me like 2 months of picking it up, writing, leaving it off, coming back to it again, looking at it again, um, and then before I finally before I finally submitted. And another thing that I did was that I gave it to a few people to review for me, which the previous speakers have also talked about. It just tells you that these are not coincidences, you know, these are actually really important steps that one needs to take in this process. And so I did write there, give to someone competent to review, you know, competent being the operative word. And if you don't have someone that you can give it to, you can also make use of verified or credible agents. And again, emphasis on verified and credible. And because that would depend on the kind of course you're studying, the university you're applying for, there'll be a lot of factors to consider to then make that judgment. So for me, when I was applying, I gave my proposal to my professors, you know, one of my professors to read for me and to review for me and give me their constructive feedback. I also made use of an agency, an advisory agency. It's called, now I don't know whether to mention their name because it almost seems like maybe I'm advertising for them. I wasn't paid for this, by the way. But I made use of, it's called UKEAS, UKEAS, and it was very useful to make use of their services during the time I was applying for both for admission and then subsequently for the funding. And then another thing I think that was helpful was I made contact with someone from the university. So during the application process, UK has organized like an educational fair and invited a couple of UK university representatives. And I was aware of that event and I attended and had the opportunity to actually meet someone from Loughborough University, which I was applying to at the time. And so I met with the person and I had, you know, a more in-depth understanding of the university, of the funding, of, you know, I got more details than I would have gotten if I had just gone through the website. So that was really very helpful. And then the university also had someone contact me after I had gotten the admission, I think, and it was a current student who contacted me and, you know, had another opportunity yet again to hear from, you know, someone, you know, in the university that I was applying to. So I think it really helps to make those contacts because that would very much inform or influence how you then go about your application. And then finally, I put in there, you know, having strong referees. I really did have, you know, very good reference letters written for me. And just hold on, let me. Yeah. And as I said, you know, for the kind of funding that I got, there wasn't any like interface for, say, interviews or to meet with the those who make the decision face to face. So they were going to judge based on my proposal and my reference, you know, the reference letters written for me. And so I had, again, I had some of my professors who obviously knew me and knew my you know, academic credentials and, you know, had known me for a while to write the reference for me. And I think personally, one of the things that's really helped, you know, not just for this funding, but even for my PhD funding and all the other fundings that I've gotten, is that I always have, you know, really very strong references being written for me. sometimes I actually joke about it, and then one of my referees would say to me, but I mean, it's not a lie, it's the truth. I'm actually saying what I know about you. So it helps when someone who knows you, whether it's a professional referee or an academic referee, or again, depending on, I know that if you're applying for MBA, for example, it might be worth having a professional referee or reference letter, from where you've worked rather than an academic. But again, there are no hard and fast rules to these things, because they all depend on the opportunities you're applying for and what is applicable. So it really helps to have a strong reference or referees to support your application. And I think I was just going to make one more statement on giving your work to credible people, competent people to review for you, because as the previous speaker had said, sometimes when you're writing something, you might be right in the middle of it, like you're in that bubble, and there are just some things that you might not quickly notice or observe. But if you give it to someone else to be like a second eye, it always helps. But again, I cannot overemphasize the importance of, I need to stress that it has to be someone competent. And if you're using agents, I need to stress that they have to be verified, and they have to be credible, so that you don't get the wrong advice, or you don't have your chances being undermined just for making the mistake of giving it to someone who isn't competent to review your work for you. So I just thought it was important for me to add that caveat. Next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, UK schools with possible funding. Again, I'm thinking of university funding, university scholarships, not like the government scholarships, because that is the one I have a lot more experience about. So these were the universities that I applied to when I was applying for my master's. They had, I think some of them had either full tuition fees, scholarship, or a certain percentage. And so so I applied to these, but the one I eventually got, I think I got something from almost all of them, but the one that had like a full one was Loughborough University, and that is obviously the one I have experience of, and the one that I can advise on. So every year, Loughborough University offers scholarships to 4 African students for masters in any subject. So during my time, I'm not quite sure what criteria they use to make the final decision, but I know the general sort of eligibility criteria is that you have to have a first class or a 2-1, and then I think a relevant experience or a strong academic credential, and then you have to come from Africa. You have to be an African to be able to apply for that. So during my time, there were 4 of us. I don't know whether it was a coincidence, but it was me from West Africa, and then I had someone from the southern part, and then the northern part, and then the eastern part of Africa. So every year, the university offers that scholarship to 4 people from Africa to come to Loughborough University to study at master's level. And then, as I said, I got another scholarship from the same university for my PhD. So it's the university studentship, which during the time that I applied for the PhD, I was a lot more conversant with, applying for scholarships and, familiar with the process and all of that. And it was the university I had graduated from. So I was a lot more familiar with the process. And so I guess maybe that sort of like helped in terms of my, I didn't have to take all those previous steps that I took during my master's, because, as I said, I got more experienced in applying for funding. So the university has that scholarship as well, if you're interested, across different schools, to do a PhD, which they offer to international students. So I think those are the two that I got that I can at least say, yes, I'm aware of. However, once you've decided that you want to study in the UK, and you might have your own preference, university preference, or a particular course you want to study. So I would advise to just go on your preferred university website, search for funding opportunities for international students. If you're unsure, if you're not sure, if you're not sure, I would say, make contact with their international office, and make direct inquiries. I mean, I had worked with the Loughborough International Office, for example, and I know how willing the people who work at the international office are always. They're always very open to respond to international inquirers, and then answer whatever questions that you have. So never be hesitant or afraid to write to the international office of the university that you're interested in. And if they have a funding and you want to make further inquiries, feel free to write to them. And my hope is that they will be as willing to respond to you as Loughborough was at the time that I worked with them, and at the time that I applied. So I think that's about it. And if there is any specific question that you have that I probably haven't maybe touched on, feel free to pop it into the chat box, or put me an email. I'll be more than happy to respond. Anything that has to do with people's professional development is definitely something that I would always make time for. Yeah, so I think that's it from me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having me, obeying me, and good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Chidima.
Thank you.
I'm sure we've had a lot of